Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Christine Goebel, and I'm so excited to have you with us to talk about the emotionally intelligent leader. So, emotional intelligence, that is the foundation for how we build trust, how we influence others, and how we connect with other people. So we've got about 30 minutes today of information, and I've got a solid 15 minutes at the end for discussion. And if we end a little bit early, we'll just keep talking and take the extra time. So please get your questions ready, write them down. I love a good collaborative session. So if there's anything that comes out while I'm teaching, just go ahead, put it in the chat, or leave it on that note for yourself later. All right, so a little bit about a company suite. So we believe healthy workplaces lead to healthier families and healthier communities. And so everything within our programs, which are about change and development, our workshops, which are all around connection and those interpersonal skills, or our professional and personal development, everything around there we're teaching you is going to create a healthier workplace, healthier family, healthier communities, and how you communicate. We're an organizational health and development company, and we believe a business doesn't change itself, it's the people who do. So we've got tons of free resources out there for you on our social media platforms, our website. We've got YouTube videos and freebies galore. So please read our blog, sign up for the newsletter, and make sure you're taking advantage of these resources that are out there. All right, so let's talk about today's focus. So, today we're going to talk about increasing self awareness, and this is how we recognize our emotions, our habits, our behaviors, and how they're going to impact other people. We're going to strengthen our self management, and so that is all about responding thoughtfully when we're under pressure instead of a reactive or impulsive reaction. Then we're going to build some social awareness, and this is to better understand other perspectives, other needs, other emotions of people on our team or in our household. And then we're also going to talk about developing relationship management skills. And so those relationships foster trust, and this is how we hold people accountable well. This is how we have healthy communication and stronger team performance all around us. And just a side note, and every single week, we're getting calls from people sharing that their operating systems aren't getting the results that they expected, and they want us to tell them why. And so they're often expecting that we're going to tell them, oh, use this system instead of that system, but that's never the case. So I want to be clear about what the difference, it's not the system that they're using, it's the people using the system. So two people could be using the same system and get. So this is specifically when we use systems, it's about how the people are communicating who are using the system. And the systems themselves, you can read books, get the templates or whatever. The system itself isn't actually going to change things for you. It's the people. All right. So I want you to think about emotional intelligence as four skills working together. So it's just a simple grid, and we've got self and social and awareness and management. And when these things intersect, they're going to create four core skills of emotional intelligence. So we've got self awareness, and that is recognizing our own emotions, how they're influencing our behavior. We've got social awareness, and this is understanding others' emotions, their perspectives, and how they impact our responses. We've now got self management. And so, self managing our emotions, our impulses, our responses, and this especially is important when we're under pressure. And then finally, we've got relationship management. And so, we use relationship management when we take awareness of self and others, and then we clearly manage conflict and build meaningful connections and all of those kinds of things with other people. All right, so self-awareness and social awareness. So I'm just going to stick on the awareness piece for a sec. So, self-awareness, we're asking ourselves things like, what's happening inside of me? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How is this affecting my behavior? And then we've got social awareness, which is what's happening around me? What are other people thinking? What might they be feeling? What pressures do they have? What perspectives do they have that they might be experiencing that I might not see? And then we've got self management and relationship management. So, self management is now that I know what's happening inside of me and I'm a little bit more aware of this other person, how will I respond? And so, this is how we regulate emotion, we choose our behavior, we respond with intention and not react with the impulse. And then we've got relationship management. So now that I have awareness of self, awareness of others, I'm managing myself. How am I going to use all that information to build trust, strengthen relationships? And so this is where the communication, influence, empathy, conflict resolution, and collaboration are all going to come together here. All right. So I want you to take awareness, and that's going to tell us what's happening now. And a management determines what's going to happen next because you can't manage something if you don't know what's happening. Okay. So we've got our first poll here. So I want you to just go ahead and put your answers in the chat. And so first thing we've got, which leadership responsibility requires the most emotional intelligence? A, leading through uncertainty. B, holding people accountable. C, navigating conflict between team members. D, influencing without formal authority. Or E, making difficult decisions people won't like. So I'll give you a minute. Go ahead and put your answers in the chat. All right. Okay. So regardless of what you picked, you're right. They all take emotional intelligence, but I want you to pay attention to your choice. And the reason I want you to pay attention to your choice is because I'm going to be covering these different areas. So when that topic comes up, just pay a little bit more attention to that particular area. There's no way to take in everything I'm saying today, so I want you to try to pull a few nuggets out of it, and you certainly could rewatch the video when we're done. So the whole thing here is that none of these types of challenges are solved by a technical experience. So you could have strong strategy, you could have the best financial information, you could even have a clear operating system and still struggle when you're leading people through uncertainty, when you're holding people accountable, when you're facing conflict or change. And because these are people challenges, they are going to require us to understand ourselves and how we're going to react, accurately reading each other, not making assumptions. So, this is how we ask questions and listen. All right. So, let's go ahead and dig into self awareness. So, this is all about what's happening inside of me. And this part's really important. This is going to come before any other changes can come. You've got to grow in self awareness. So, let's talk about emotions. All right. So, emotions are tough because they lie to us sometimes. And they're indicators, okay? They're not true, they're not always real, and they're not always accurate. And so, all the things that are happening inside of us, I just want you to take a look at this little framework that I've got for you. So, we have a belief system in us, and this is based on how you grow up, your life experiences, whatever it is. You've got a belief system. And when that gets triggered with a type of stimulus, what first gets hit is our emotions. So the emotion hits before the thought, which I thought that was pretty interesting when I first learned that. So your emotions First thing that goes off, which is why some people like me, I'm a little skittish sometimes. So, like, my poor kids, they walk around the corner and I'm like, whoa, like I didn't know that they lived here. But that happens, right? So these are our emotions. Am I in danger? No. There just happens to be another person in the house, but I might still react. So once it hits our emotion, then it hits our thoughts. And so we start getting these thoughts, and we have to make sure they're not distorted thoughts, but we have to be accurate thoughts. And then when we take a look at our behavior, it's the outward expression of all of it. So it goes through our beliefs, our emotions, our thoughts before anyone else sees what's actually going on in our head. So the emotion itself, this is just our natural state of mind. And this resilience piece, this is how we recover. And so we want to make sure we recover fast if our emotions are inaccurate. So if I know that I'm not actually in danger because there's a person around the corner in my home that actually lives here too, I can recover quickly from that because I see them, I recognize them, we're all safe, I move on. Hopefully, I didn't scare them too, right? In the workplace, though, it doesn't always work like this. And so in the workplace, it could be something like you get the dreaded, hey, can I see you in my office? So as an executive, you might be thinking, are they going to quit? Or if it's one of your people that you report to, you might be thinking, am I getting fired? Right. And so, can I see you in my office could be something that might actually be no big deal. There might be nothing wrong. And they may have just wanted to tell you that you did a good job on something. But that emotion of anxiety, the thoughts that we tend to make these big catastrophes in our brains, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so awful. And you might even tell 10 people on the way in how awful it's going to be because you might get canned today. You don't know what's going to happen, right? And so we do all that stuff. And sometimes it's just not true. So we have to be careful when we use statements like, can I see you in my office? And understand that statements like that tend to make other people feel bad. Doesn't give them a great feeling unless you tell them why. And that's the most important question we want to answer with humans is give them a little bit more information. You don't need to be elusive about the reason you want to talk to somebody. In fact, it's not kind to leave out details, especially when it's a private conversation that needs to take place. So they should be prepared, right? We just want to prepare them walking in because we want them calm. No surprises. We definitely don't want surprises in the workplace unless it's fun. And even then, some people don't even like surprises. So, all right. So, we want to make sure we're not reacting to events, that we're reacting to the actual meaning behind the events. So, what is true? All right. So here's another question. Go ahead, put your answer in the chat. So, which leadership situation is the hardest for you to navigate well? A, someone publicly challenges your decision. B, your teammate resists an important change. C, two key leaders are in conflict. D, you have incomplete information but must decide. And E, you realize someone misunderstood your intentions. So go ahead. I'll give you a couple seconds. Put it in the chat. Ooh, these are good. All right, interesting. We've got a lot of A's and D's. Okay. Yeah, so someone publicly challenges your decision and you have incomplete information, but you must decide. That's interesting. So, all of them, again, right? All of these, one thing in common, all these situations cause an emotional response in us. And so, this is recognizing the frustration before it chooses your behavior so you know what sets you off. So you need to know the kinds of things that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, will give you chest pain, give you a migraine, whatever it is. Wherever you feel it, you need to know what kinds of things cause you to feel that way, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to close that gap. And we want to make sure that we recover quickly when we're emotional. That's emotional resilience. How fast are you recovering and how well are you communicating? Because some people, like me, I'm triggered by criticism. If I feel like I'm being criticized, right? Some people, it's just the uncertainty. So if you have all the information to make a decision, some people just don't like the pressure of the unknown. It might be overwhelming. Some people might feel like they get overlooked a lot. And so none of these emotions make you a bad professional. I just want you to know that. What matters is how professional are you? That's what's going to happen next. So even though all these situations are different, what we're talking about isn't necessarily the situation itself. It's just our response to the situation. So the good news is we can't control what's around us, but we can control how we're going to face every single situation. Emotion. So I want you to just think about emotions as information. That's all it is, just information. They're not instructions on how to behave. They're just information about you. Okay, so self-management. Let's move into that. Self-management. So this is how do I manage myself? So if we're staying first in our self lane, self-awareness and self-management, self-awareness is going to notice the emotion, and self-management is going to decide what it's going to do with the emotion. So I love talking about our response and how it's different from a reaction. So I just want you to take a look at the screen right now. So you're going to see the same two things exist in a reaction and in a response. And the difference is the space in between the two. And so a reaction is just something that stimulates me and I act. So I'm not really thinking about my behavior. I didn't process the emotion. I might just know that I'm mad and I'm not really processing how it's going to affect other people when I'm angry. So for response, the difference here is this pause that happens in the middle for mindfulness. And that's really where emotional intelligence lives, in this space right here. So the reactions tend to be really quick. They're stressed. They can be a little bit more aggressive. They consider their own perspective. And a lot of times it becomes a little bit unproductive or very unproductive. It can be destructive to relationship. It just weakens things. And a reaction, this is about not really considering how your behavior impacts other people. And normally this really doesn't go well for you. But the response, when we pause for that thought and we're evaluating it, we become less threatened in those situations. We calm down, we consider everything that's going on, it's more productive, and it empowers other people. It's just the way it goes. Okay, this will be our last question. When communication breaks down, what is usually the root cause? Assumptions, a lack of trust, different priorities, different communication styles, or unclear expectations. Oh my, we love A and D today. Oh, awesome. Okay, E, A, D, and E. Okay, love it. All right. All right, so I'm just going to talk about each one briefly because, as you know, there's not really a wrong answer in the polls in this particular session. All right, so assumptions. This is where we're filling in the blanks instead of asking better questions. We want to make sure that we practice good questioning skills, good listening skills here. A lack of trust, when the trust is low, people are going to stop giving one another the benefit of the doubt. They may leave the organization, they may gossip, things like that. If we have different priorities, it could be that two people are both right, but still frustrated because they're solving different problems. And if we have different communication styles, sometimes the issue isn't the message, it's that the message itself isn't delivered in a way the other person can easily receive it. So then everyone's offended, and that's usually what happens with that. And then we have unclear expectations. This is probably in a work setting, the lack of clear expectation is usually the beginning of what throws things off. And so that's what leads to assumptions, lacking trust, things of that nature. And because we're interesting, humans are interesting, and we create our own versions of things. So we naturally start to fill in these gaps of information that we don't understand with other information that might not even be true. It's just the way we are. We're designed that way. So we get to be really, really, really careful with that, knowing that. So before we're trying to solve communication problems, we need to understand what someone else is experiencing. So the social awareness piece, this helps us gather better information before we respond. So social awareness, what am I noticing about them? We want to observe this before we make an assumption. So this part's more than empathy. It's about accurately reading what's happening with another person. A lot of times we say, "Oh, I can feel your emotions," or "I understand where you're coming from," or, "I've been there." Um, I'm like actually talking about getting accurately knowing what is happening, what is the other person's perspective or perception. So we notice something and then we ask questions. So I want to teach you a little framework that we have here at A Company Suite. We love to use this one. This is straight out of our Leadership and Professional Development Program, page 47, if you've taken it. So, all right. So let's talk about F. F is feel the energy and the speed. And so we want to make sure that we are keeping up with what's going on with them. We want to feel that. We want to next listen to the language that they're sharing. We want to evaluate priorities. So we're trying to gain a better understanding of where they're at and what matters to them. Okay, so how do I act? I'm quick, I'm slow. What language am I using? Think or feel? How do I evaluate priorities? What's important to me? What needs how fast, how slow, how important, right? So we're checking on all those things. What are we noticing? Okay. So quickly, I'm going to move into relationship management. So you've got all this information. Now, what do you do with it? We want to start breaking down some barriers. And what's interesting about relationship management is so you've got the energy and speed, you're listening to the language, you're evaluating the priorities, and now what do you need to do? You need to execute the flex. And so I'm going to explain to you what that is. And so if I'm observing that they speak fast, they're to the point, then what is my response? I need to be concise. I need to lead with the outcomes. I just need to respond in a way that kind of mirrors their behavior. I got to manage my own behavior. And it takes a lot of energy to do this. And I understand that. It can be exhausting. All right. So next, they talk open and freely. They have a lot of energy. What do I need to do? I need to turn it up. Okay. I need to be more excited. I need to engage in what's possible. We're going to follow this person's lead on how big do they want the energy to go. And I'm not saying be fake. I'm saying turn up your energy a little bit. Because if you're not like them, you're a little bit lower in vitality or slower in speech, it might actually be a drag for them. So we want to make sure that if we turn it up, if we're a little bit more steady pace, we just want to turn up our energy a little bit. The same holds true here. If they're calm and peaceful, they're a great listener. If they don't talk a lot, but they listen really well, these are the people in our organization that kind of know everything that's going on just because they don't talk a lot. So everybody tells them everything. And if you want to know what's broken, you ask them. But what do you do if it's them? You slow down. You build trust over time. You want to make sure that you are actively listening to them. So you're asking more questions, you're drawing more information out because they probably want to speak and be heard too. They want to do it privately, one-on-ones. And if they ask a lot of questions and they're always asking why something happens, they're really analytical, they think deep, they're methodical people. We want to be prepared and we want to be organized. We want to be clear, right? They're probably going to ask a lot of detailed questions especially if you have a big idea. They're going to want to understand all the ways to get to the idea. And it might really upset you if you're a big idea person and you think details are a drag. So if that's you, just keep in mind to be patient with them because these are the people that are going to help make your idea come alive. So we want to be patient. If you want to be really, really patient with them, just be clear, don't rush, let them think out loud. That's how they process. And so people in general, it's not that we want to just be like everybody else and fake it and all that. They just need to feel that you understand them and that's what flexing is. This is about earning respect and showing value. And learning, like, what do you need to do to communicate at your best? So when we create a situation, and we're in a situation with another person, it's more of an experience so they can communicate how they need to communicate in the best situation possible. All right. So before your next conversation with somebody, especially if you need to pause for that mindfulness, you've got to ask yourself these questions. So, first one is, what's happening inside of me? How do I want to respond? What am I noticing about them? And how do I flex to help move trust forward? Because this is all about understanding ourselves first. And once we've got that awareness, we've got choices we can make. And then the choices we make affect our behavior, which will impact how much somebody trusts or doesn't trust us. We don't want to weaken that. We don't want to destroy that at all. All right, so some resources available to you for signing up and registering for the webinar. You can get a free 15-minute session with me if you'd like it. So a link to my calendar is in the chat. You also get access to download our Flex assessment. It's just a PDF. Click on the link that Haley's put in the chat. That's available for you. It's a full one pager with a bunch of check boxes for you to put check marks. So you can put in the name of the person you're trying to communicate better with, or you can leave it off. But this way you kind of can go through it and figure out how you need to flex. And if you don't have this information and already from working with us, DISC assessments are available here. So we'd be happy to run a DISC assessment for you. And you can, if you choose, with your 30-ish page report that tells you all about DISC, you can actually also get a review added on to that if you'd like. DISC is kind of like a behavioral analysis 101. It's the most foundational behavioral assessment that's out there. It's super easy to understand. And yeah, we'd love to be able to help you with any of these things. So I just want to thank you for joining us today. Our next webinar is coming up August 4th, and that's going to be about change management. So we're going to talk about when change meets resistance. And you are welcome to contact me directly if you like. Stay connected on our social, sign up for our newsletters. That's probably the best way to keep up with what's going on here. And if you want to just talk for a few minutes and ask specific questions about your situation that you might not be comfortable with talking about on our Q&A, go ahead and use the link to sign up for 15 minutes with me.